If the cold becomes too much, he pauses, choosing his words carefully. Call me, that's all. He doesn't wait for her to reject him again. He turns toward the door, stops only long enough to make sure she's still steady on her feet, then steps out. He leaves her alone with nothing but the card, the quiet, and her own breath. Elena doesn't touch it. She won't give it meaning. She won't let herself hope. But as the clinic's door closes behind him, her shoulders sag. The bravery she showed in that alley drains out of her like water slipping through cupped hands. Later, when she returns to her hidden corner outside, the night is unforgiving. The air feels sharper than usual. The cardboard she arranged feels thinner. The towel she uses as a blanket barely traps any warmth. She curls into herself, teeth chattering despite her best effort to pretend she isn't cold. Minutes pass. The cold deepens. Her breath clouds in the air. She presses her eyes shut, trying to will sleep to come. But her mind keeps circling back to the same image. The card sitting in the clinic, the number she didn't memorize, the voice that wasn't unkind. Her fingers twitch. Still, she doesn't move. The night grows colder, biting into her skin. Her ribs ache every time she inhales. She feels the tremor in her hands growing worse. Finally, she slips a hand into her pocket. She pulls out the card she swore she wouldn't take. She must have grabbed it without realizing. Her thumb runs across the embossed numbers. She stares at it. Just stares. The cold presses harder. Her breath shakes. Her pride and her survival battle silently. Her decision hangs in the darkness, suspended like a breath she hasn't exhaled yet. The night is colder than any before it. The kind of cold that quiets everything. Thoughts, pride, even fear. Elena stands at the edge of the hotel's rear parking lot, clutching the thin jacket she wears only because the uniform code requires it. Her breath leaves in uneven clouds. She's been pacing for 15 minutes, debating, turning back every 5 steps. Finally, she sees it. The dark sedan, parked beneath the lone street lamp. Engine off, waiting. She almost leaves, almost turns and disappears into the night. But her fingers brush the business card again, creased from being held too tightly, and something in her chest grips. Before she can talk herself out of it, she takes a step toward the car. And another. And another. When she's close enough, her resolve collapses into a whisper. I'm here. Adrian looks up from the driver's seat. He doesn't appear surprised, as though he had expected, hoped, she might come. But he offers no smile, no triumphant expression, only quiet acknowledgement. He steps out. He doesn't ask how she found the courage. He doesn't ask what changed. He doesn't ask anything at all. He simply opens the passenger door and stands aside. A gesture without fanfare, without implication, just shelter, just dignity. She hesitates on the threshold, her hand gripping the metal frame of the door. For a heartbeat, she waits, for him to say something suggestive, something transactional, something to confirm every fear she's learned to live with. But all he says is, "Let's get you warm." Nothing more. Inside the car, the heating is already on, a subtle warmth filling the quiet space. She sits rigidly at first, posture stiff, shoulders locked. Adrian doesn't glance at her more than once. He drives with calm, steady focus, as though transporting something fragile. The city passes by in blurs of amber streetlights and reflective puddles. Neither of them speak. When they reach his building, a tall, understated complex with no flashy signage, he parks underground. Elena's nerves return in full force. She clutches the seatbelt as he opens her door. Inside the penthouse, the warmth hits her like a soft wave. Not the excessive luxury she expected. Not gold accents, not marble floors. Not the cold perfection of wealth she cleans every day. His home is lived in, minimalist, simple, warm earth tones, a few framed photos on a shelf, a jacket draped over a chair, a stack of books on a table, some open, face down, a space belonging to someone who doesn't decorate to impress strangers. She stands near the entrance, refusing to step farther without permission. Adrian notices this, but doesn't comment. He walks ahead, leaving her a respectful distance. This way, he says gently. He leads her down a quiet hallway to a small, tidy guest room. The lighting is soft. The bedding looks impossibly clean. Fresh blankets, a thick comforter, a folded sweater on the bed, neutral gray, unworn. The heater hums softly in the corner. Elena stares as though she's seeing something she isn't allowed to want. Adrian pauses at the doorway, keeping his body angled outward so she doesn't feel cornered. His voice is low, careful. You can rest here tonight. Nothing else is expected of you. Her throat dries. She looks at the blanket, blinking rapidly, then shakes her head slightly as if warding off emotion. I don't owe you anything, she whispers. No, he says it instantly, firmly. You owe me nothing, Elena. A small, almost invisible shudder goes through her, relief so unfamiliar it almost hurts. She touches the edge of the blanket, fingers trembling. It's soft, too clean. A stark contrast to cardboard soaked in rainwater. He sees her eyes glisten. Not dramatic, not loud, just the quiet breaking of someone who hasn't rested in far too long. She swipes at her face quickly, embarrassed by even that small slip. Adrian steps back, giving her space. I'll be in the living room if you need anything. He turns to leave, hand brushing the light switch. But before he can step away, she whispers, Thank you. Not in the casual tone of hospitality, not in the obligated tone of dependence, but in the fragile voice of someone who can't remember the last time she felt safe. He nods once. Rest. He closes the door softly behind him, not locking her in, not hovering outside, just letting her breathe. Inside the room, Elena presses her palms into the warm blanket. One deep inhale, one slow exhale. Her entire body trembles. Shock, disbelief, and an ache she didn't know she was carrying. For the first time in months, maybe years, she lies down without fear. Her eyes flutter, her chest softens. The world goes quiet, and as she drifts into real sleep, her life begins to change in the smallest, quietest way possible. A single fragile choice unfolding into something she never expected. Morning arrives gently in Adrian's penthouse. Soft light slipping through half-drawn curtains, warming the air with a warmth Elena hasn't felt in years. She wakes slowly, uncertain at first, waiting for the usual sounds. Shouting supervisors, clattering carts, doors slamming. Instead, silence. A safe silence. She sits up carefully, half expecting the room to vanish like some impossible dream, but the bed is still beneath her, the blanket still around her shoulders, her ribs still ache. But not from cold this time. When she steps out, Adrian is already awake. He sits at the dining table, quietly reading something on a tablet. No suit jacket, sleeves rolled up, a mug of tea in front of him. The light makes him look different, softer, human. He glances up, offering her a small nod, just enough to say he sees her, not enough to overwhelm. Morning, he says. Good morning, she answers. Voice small but steady. He gestures toward the counter. Bread, fruit, something simple warming in a pan. Not a spread meant to impress. A meal meant for someone who hasn't eaten in days. She hesitates. I can't. You can, he interrupts gently. Just this once. She sits slowly. He doesn't stare at her while she eats. He focuses on his tea, giving her the privacy she doesn't even know she needs. But he notices the way her hands tremble, the way she chews too fast, as though conditioned to finish meals before someone takes them away. He looks down, jaw tight. Not pity, anger. Anger at the world that put her here. After a few quiet moments, she breaks the silence. I didn't tell you last night, she murmurs, staring at her hands. Thank you for trusting me in your home. He meets her gaze with a calm honesty. You look like someone who hasn't been trusted in a long time. She breathes out, a soft, almost painful release. The conversation moves in pieces, not as a grand confession, but as fragments slipping out naturally. A photo on the shelf catches her eye. A teenage boy, smiling awkwardly, wearing a school uniform. Adrian follows her line of sight. Your brother? He asks gently. She nods. I send money when I can. He's in a boarding school in the countryside. A good one. Her voice warms just a little. He's smart. Smarter than I ever was. Adrian hears the pride. He also hears the exhaustion beneath it. Your parents? He asks, careful, almost giving her room to refuse the question. Gone, she whispers. Both? Years ago. It's always been just the two of us since. She keeps her eyes forward, not wanting to see the expression on his face, not wanting anyone to look at her with sympathy she hasn't earned. But Adrian's face remains steady. No flinching, no excess emotion. He simply listens. And the hospital debts? He adds softly, surprising her. He caught the hint in her earlier tone. He connected the dots she hadn't meant to reveal. She nods once. Still paying them. It's why I work here. Why I took every shift. Why I... She doesn't finish. He doesn't need her to. The weight hangs between them, quiet and heavy. Later, while she rinses her dish, despite Adrian telling her she doesn't need to, she notices another photo on the shelf. A woman, smiling softly, standing beside Adrian. Elena freezes. Adrian sees the shift in her expression. His posture changes. Subtle, defensive, wounded. She was important to you, Elena says gently. His eyes lower. Not ashamed, just tired. She was my fiancée. The air stills. There are stories that can be spoken openly, and there are stories carved so deeply into bone that they only escape through cracks. He doesn't elaborate, not at first, but later while walking her to the guest room to grab her things, he pauses by the window overlooking the rain. She died 3 years ago. A pause. An accident. I should have been with her, but I wasn't. That's all he says. But it's enough for Elena to understand why he moves so carefully, why he lives in a home that feels paused in time, why he helps but never pushes, why he carries the kind of silence only grief can build. They don't dive deeper into pain. They don't exchange full life stories in a dramatic moment. Instead, grief shows itself in the way Adrian keeps a respectful distance. Hope shows itself in the way Elena looks at the blanket she slept under. Fear shows itself in the way she avoids the mirror, not wanting to see how tired she looks. And healing shows itself in the way Adrian offers her tea without asking anything in return. Two people, each carrying invisible scars, opening tiny windows into their worlds without fully stepping through. Just enough for empathy, not enough for vulnerability. Not yet. And in those quiet fragments of shared truth, something begins growing between them. Small, hesitant, unspoken, but very real. The morning after she slept safely for the first time in months should have been quiet, gentle, maybe even hopeful. Elena leaves the penthouse early, thanking Adrian in a soft voice before hurrying out, determined not to overstay, not to become someone's burden. She walks into the hotel with her shoulders straighter than usual. Not confident, no, not yet, but rested. And rest alone gives her a strange, fragile strength. But strength doesn't prepare her for what waits. The moment she steps into the staff hallway, conversations fall silent. Not gradually, but sharply, like a knife slicing through noise. Eyes turn. Whispers swarm behind her back. Did you see her last night? She got into a guest car. No wonder she gets extra shifts. These girls will do anything for a shortcut. Elena stops walking, heat rising in her chest. She's heard rumors before. She's been misunderstood before. But today, something is different. Mrs. Garnett, her supervisor, stands at the end of the hallway holding a clipboard like a judge about to deliver a sentence. Elena Torres, she says without emotion. My office. Now. The hallway closes around her as everyone watches. Inside the tiny office, without offering her a seat, Mrs. Garnett begins. There have been complaints regarding your conduct. Elena blinks. Complaints? About what? About inappropriate associations with a hotel guest. The supervisor's voice remains clinical, detached. Staff were seen watching you enter a private vehicle last night. That's not... I wasn't... Her body tense, her palms sweaty. She can't even form the words. Mrs. Garnet continues, signing a form with brisk, sharp strokes. Due to the nature of this establishment, we cannot afford scandal or impropriety. Effective immediately. Your employment is terminated. The world drops out from under her. Terminated? She whispers. Please, I didn't do anything wrong. He was just, he was helping me. Mrs. Garnet doesn't look up. Her face is firm, but her eyes flicker, just once, with something like regret. But procedure is procedure. Corporate pressure is corporate pressure. And Elena is an easy target. Your uniform will be deducted from your final pay. Turn in your badge on the way out. And that's it. No explanation. No chance to defend herself. No dignity. Her vision blurs. Not from anger, but from exhaustion so deep it feels like the ground itself is rejecting her. She fought so hard. She endured cold, humiliation, hunger. But this accusation of something she never did, cuts deeper than any bruise. She steps out into the hallway, numb. The whispers have multiplied. People look at her as if she's already gone. Her badge slips from her fingers. It hits the floor with a sound so small it somehow echoes. That's when the elevator opens, and Adrian steps out. Not in a suit, not in a rush, just with a calm expression that changes instantly when he sees the scene in front of him. Elena standing frozen, trembling, surrounded by judgment. His gaze sharpens, his eyes focused. What happened? He asks quietly. Mrs. Garnet straightens as if she's seeing him for the first time. Sir, I apologize. This staff member has been dismissed due to inappropriate. She's not staff anymore, another supervisor mutters. Elena swallows hard, whispering, Please, don't. This has nothing to do with you. But Adrian steps forward, his voice low, controlled, dangerously calm. Who authorized her dismissal? Mrs. Garnet clears her throat. It was a collective decision, sir. We can't risk the hotel's reputation with an employee who... Stop! That one word freezes the entire corridor. Adrian's expression could crush steel. You're worried about the hotel's reputation? He asks. Then let me make something very clear. He turns to Elena first, softening just enough to show her she's not alone. And then he faces management. I am not a guest here, he says, voice echoing off the walls. I own this hotel. The silence becomes absolute. Someone drops a pen. Someone else gasps. Mrs. Garnet's face drains of color. Elena stares at him in shock, eyes wide, breath caught. Adrian steps toward the supervisors with deliberate calm. And you fired one of the hardest working employees you have, he says, based on gossip. No, sir, we were acting in the hotel's interest, Mrs. Garnet stammers. In whose interest? He asks quietly. Certainly not mine. He turns to Elena again, and this time his voice is gentle. You still want this job? Her lips part, her voice barely forming the word. Yes. Good. He faces management. Reinstate her, effective immediately. And as for everyone involved in this decision, his eyes harden. You will report to me in my office within the hour. There will be accountability. No yelling, no threats, just a tone that promises consequences. Mrs. Garnet bows her head. Yes, Mr. Cross. The hallway remains motionless as Adrian steps beside Elena. Let's go, he murmurs. You don't need to stand in this. She follows him, still shaking. Not from fear, but from the overwhelming mixture of relief, humiliation, disbelief, and something else she can't yet name. As the elevator doors close behind them, Elena's voice breaks. You didn't have to do that. His reply is steady, quiet. You didn't deserve what they did. She wipes at her eyes, embarrassed, but Adrian doesn't look away. This is your job, Elena, he says. You earned it. No rumor can take that from you. The doors open again. The moment feels like a fault line, splitting her old life from whatever is coming next. Elena stands in the quiet corridor outside the manager's office, hands clasped tightly together, eyes still red from everything that's happened. The humiliation, the judgment, the disgrace she never invited yet somehow always had to fight. Adrian steps closer, his voice low, not commanding this time, but steady, gentle, as if afraid she might shatter. Elena, Let me help you. She stiffens. Help. That word has betrayed her before. He notices the way her shoulders tense, how she subtly steps back as though preparing for another blow. He softens his expression. This isn't charity, he adds quietly. This is a path, one you've earned 100 times over. She shakes her head. People don't offer things like that. Not to someone like me. He takes a slow breath, thinking, choosing every word with care. I'm offering you an education, he says. A full sponsorship, courses, training, whatever direction you want to go, hospitality management, administration, finance, skills that no one can take away from you. Her eyes flicker, unsure if he's serious, unsure if she should even dare imagine such a thing. And after you qualify, he continues, a position in my company, one I know you'll excel in. She blinks, stunned. A future after so many dead ends, a path after so many locked doors. But he isn't finished. I also want to move you into a safer place. Somewhere with privacy, security, no more sleeping in storage rooms or staff closets. You'll have space to breathe, to think, to grow. Elena swallows hard. A life with safety feels impossibly luxurious, almost mythical. She lowers her voice, barely audible. Why me? There are hundreds of girls like me. Adrian steps closer, his tone deepened by sincerity, not power. Because you're the first person who didn't treat me like a wallet, he says. You didn't try to impress me, manipulate me, pretend for me. You just worked. You were honest, and you were kind in a place that rarely is. Her breath shakes. He's not wrong. She never saw him as anything other than a difficult guest she needed to serve well. A tired man who accidentally dropped his key card, a stranger who needed directions. She never imagined he was the one person who could change her entire trajectory. But accepting help, that's another battle entirely. I don't want to owe you, she whispers. He lifts his chin, eyes steady. You won't owe me anything. Not now. Not ever. This isn't a debt. It's an investment in someone who deserves more than what this hotel ever gave her. She glances away, blinking rapidly as emotion claws up her throat. The hallway feels too bright, too real, too dangerous for hope. He softens again. Elena, I'm not trying to rescue you. I'm trying to give you back a future that was stolen from you long before today. Her lips tremble. She looks up at him, and for the first time since the chaos began, she doesn't see a billionaire, or a guest, or a powerful man. She sees someone who means every word. Slowly, she exhales. Just give me time to think. Adrian nods immediately. No pressure, no demands. As long as you need. But even as she walks away, she knows she's already thinking about it. Already imagining the life he just placed within reach. A life she never thought she'd be allowed to dream of. Days pass, but the storm that once surrounded Elena gradually settles into something quieter, gentler, something she never imagined she could share with someone like Adrian. They begin with small moments, moments that don't look like romance, but feel like healing. Adrian starts showing up in the staff cafeteria around breakfast, insisting the food there is better than whatever they serve upstairs. It's a lie, everyone knows it, but he delivers it with such a straight face that Elena laughs, really laughs. For the first time in weeks, the sound doesn't feel foreign to her. He sits across from her with a simple cup of black coffee, sleeves rolled up, looking far less like the billionaire who owns the entire building and more like a man trying to remember how to breathe. You always rush through breakfast, he notices one morning. She shrugs. I'm used to eating on the move. You deserve to slow down, he replies, even just for 10 minutes. And somehow, without forcing it, she does. In return, she asks him questions no one ever dares to ask. Do you ever get tired of being, important? He snorts softly. Constantly, she smirks. Poor billionaire. He gives her a look, mock offense, and she hides a smile behind her cup. Their conversations become a quiet ritual. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people with very different lives finding unexpected comfort in each other's honesty. She tells him about growing up in a house where silence meant danger, where dreams were luxuries, where she learned to survive before she ever learned to hope. He listens, really listens, not like a man looking for the sad parts of her story, but like someone honored she trusts him with it. In return, he shares pieces of himself he doesn't give to anyone. Not his board, not his staff, not the people who pretend to care. He talks about loneliness, responsibility, the weight of being admired but never truly known. And when he laughs, really laughs, it isn't polished or controlled. It's warm, sudden, almost surprised, as if he'd forgotten he was capable of it. One afternoon, she notices something about him, something subtle. "You're different when you're here," she says. "How so?" "You're a lighter." Adrian looks at her for a long moment, his expression softening in a way that makes her chest tighten. "Maybe I just needed the right company," he says quietly. Her breath catches, but the moment doesn't turn romantic. It doesn't need to. The connection between them is forming in layers. Slow, warm, patient. She finds herself walking taller, speaking clearer. She's no longer the girl who tiptoed through hallways hoping not to be noticed. With every passing day, she regains pieces of herself she thought she'd lost. And he changes too. He stops checking his watch every 3 minutes. He stops hiding behind his work. He stops pretending he's fine. Together, without even trying, they find a gentle space where neither of them has to perform or protect or prove anything. No grand gestures, no declarations, no rush, just the steady, undeniable pull of two people being seen for the first time in a very long time. And neither of them is brave enough to name what's growing between them yet, but they both feel it. In every quiet smile, every accidental touch, every soft moment they don't want to end. The evening air is soft when Adrian returns to the penthouse, but he walks in with the expression of a man carrying a decision he's weighed 1,000 times. Elena sits near the window, reviewing notes from the classes she's just enrolled in. Small, handwritten reminders of a future she still isn't sure she deserves. He pauses in the doorway, watching her for a moment. She looks peaceful, focused, and yet still too used to shrinking herself, as if the world might punish her for taking up space. "Elena," he says gently. She turns, surprised by the tenderness in his voice. "Is something wrong?" "No," he replies, stepping closer. "Something is finally right." Her eyebrows knit in confusion, but before she can ask more, he slips a small velvet box into her hands. Her breath hitches. "Adrian, what is this?" "Just open it," he murmurs. She hesitates, her fingers trembling slightly as she lifts the lid. Inside lies a single silver key, plain, practical, not gold, not diamond-studded, just simple and solid, like a promise that isn't meant to dazzle, but to last. Her lips part. For a moment, she can't breathe. "It's not to this place," Adrian says quickly, kneeling slightly so he can see her face. "I didn't want you living in a space that felt borrowed, or owed." She swallows hard. "It's to your own apartment. Close enough so I can help if you need anything, but yours, completely yours." Elena stares at the key as if it might disappear. He continues, voice soft but steady. "You deserve safety that isn't dependent on my presence. A door only you can open. A place where your life can start on your terms, not mine." Her fingers tighten around the velvet box. Tears brim, then spill. Slow, disbelieving tears that fall not out of gratitude but something deeper. Something like release. I don't understand," she whispers. "Why would you give me something so big?" Adrian shakes his head gently. "It's not big," he says. "It's the minimum you deserve. You've lived your life choosing survival. I want you to choose possibility." Her shoulders shake as more tears fall, and she covers her mouth with her hand, trying to contain the emotion. This isn't the grand palace life people gossip about. This is something quieter, more sacred, freedom. For the first time, she holds the symbol of a future that isn't borrowed or temporary or fragile. A key that means she'll never sleep on cardboard again. Never depend on a stranger's mercy again. Never wonder if she'll survive the night again. Adrian watches her, steady, patient, almost reverent. He doesn't touch her. He doesn't pull her into an embrace. He simply stands there, giving her space to take in what this moment means. "You're crying," he murmurs softly. She laughs through the tears, broken, messy, real. "Nobody's ever given me anything this big. I always thought stuffs like this happens in Hollywood. There's no price here," he says. "No conditions, no debt." She looks up at him, eyes shimmering. "Why do you care so much?" His voice is barely above a whisper. "Because someone should have cared for you long before I came into the picture." She breaks again, quietly, beautifully. He offers no speeches, no declarations, no romantic pressure, just the steady presence of a man who's finally found something worth protecting and is doing it the right way. Elena closes the velvet box gently, holding it to her chest like a lifeline, and Adrian, standing just a breath away, watches her with a soft, unguarded emotion he hasn't allowed himself to feel in years. Not possession, not desire, not pity, respect, hope, and something deeper, blooming slowly, patiently, just like the connection neither of them dares to name yet. The key glints in her hand as if sealing a silent truth. Her life is no longer about survival. It's about beginnings. Night settles softly over the city, the kind of quiet that makes new spaces feel larger than they are. Elena steps into her apartment for the very first time. Her own apartment, her own walls, her own air, still stunned by the reality that the key in her hand unlocked a door that belonged to her. No borrowed room, no cardboard, no fear of footsteps waking her, just a simple space filled with the promise of a life she's only started to imagine. She sets her small bag on the counter. Her movements are slow, reverent, as though she's afraid she might disturb the fragile peace blooming around her. The lights are warm, soft, gentle on the eyes. The place smells faintly of new paint and the citrus cleaner she remembers from her childhood school. The silence is comforting, but also new, unfamiliar. Elena walks through the apartment with tentative steps. A bedroom with a door she can lock, a kitchenette that feels like luxury, a window that holds the city like a painting. She stops in the center of the living room. "This is mine," she whispers, as if tasting the truth. But the moment doesn't overwhelm her. It grounds her, empowers her. She kneels beside one of the unpacked boxes. Adrian had insisted the essentials be delivered, and begins to sift through the items inside. Neatly folded clothes, toiletries, notebooks for her upcoming classes. Then her hand brushes against something unfamiliar, a thick envelope tucked between textbooks. There's no label. Her brows knit as she pulls it out. It's heavier than it looks, sealed but not taped, as if someone placed it there at the last moment. And there, printed discreetly at the bottom corner, is a name, Adrian Cross. Elena's breath stills. She frowns, not fearful, just puzzled, curious. She hadn't known he added anything personal to these boxes. He insisted the apartment was hers alone, that he wouldn't intrude. She sits on the edge of her new bed, turning the envelope in her hands. What could this be? A document? A form? Something he forgot to mention? Her fingers hover at the edge of the seal, but she doesn't open it yet. She can't explain why. Something in the weight of the envelope feels private, not dangerous, just heavy in meaning. Significant in a way she can't yet define. She places it on her lap and exhales slowly. Outside, the city hums like a heartbeat. Inside, her own heart matches it, steady but full of questions she never expected to have. She glances toward the window, where the skyline glows in distant golds and silvers. Then, he gave her independence, not knowing she would choose to return to him. Elena lifts the envelope again, staring at Adrian's name, the man who had changed everything by doing the one thing no one else had ever done for her. Seeing her humanity before her struggle, her fingertips trace the corner of the paper. There is tension in her expression, not fear, not doubt, but that quiet, sharpened curiosity that comes just before a truth reveals itself. But the man she trusted lives with a truth she has yet to uncover. Elena's eyes linger on the seal, and just as she begins to peel it open, what do you think is inside the envelope? What do you think Elena will find as she unseals the envelope? Some beginnings, they say, hide the answers to questions no one thinks to ask. Thank you for watching to the end. Please click on the subscribe button to get notified on the next episode.